call the meeting to order. Will the clerk please call roll?
Dr. Ramona Becker.
Here.
Guy McDonald.
Here.
Betty Martine.
Here.
Peggy O'Donnell.
Here.
Diane Wynn.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mayor.
Wonderful. And with all of our meetings, we will open with a moment of silent prayer. Amen. Now please rise and join us in the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Want to welcome everybody to a very warm final September meeting of your Bel Aire City Council. The first thing to come before council this evening is the consent agenda, which consists simply of the minutes of the September 5, 2017 regularly scheduled City Council meeting, as well as making notice that we talked about this at our last workshop, closing city offices on December 26th, January 2nd, 2018, and at noon on December 22nd, 2017. I'm sorry, kind of went out of order there, but so that's for everybody, yes.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
At the workshop, we also discussed the Friday before New Year's, December 29th, and I'd like to amend the motion and add that for a half a day. So actually, I'd like to make a motion to approve a consent agenda as amended, adding that half a day on the 29th, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
First and second for the amended consent agenda, which includes the December 29th half-day holiday. And they're all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Moving into the approval of the appropriations ordinance 2017-18. For this period, it's the total is $524,211.09. We spent $3,300 for our one-source regular monthly IT contract. Probably the biggest one out of this was obviously the $200,000 for engineering and construction, and that's related to all those the subdivisions we talked about quite a bit at our most recent meetings. And those costs are spread as special assessments, so we're not going to come back on the city. And then we also did have $28,728 to replace a police department patrol car. Do you want to point out that that is replacing the one that was totaled in the accident, so we will be reimbursed by our insurance company for that. So that is the appropriations ordinance.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to approve appropriations ordinance 17-18.
Second.
First and second, questions or comments? No? Oh?
She was going to say the amount.
Oh.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Wait.
I'm sorry I cut you off there.
That's okay. It's there.
Okay, we have first and second to approve the appropriations ordinance 17-18, which is for the record is $524,211.09. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Next, city requested appearances. We were going to recognize Linda Scott for many years of service to the Community Development Advisory Committee. Unfortunately, she's unable to join us this evening, but we'll make sure we do that hopefully in a future meeting. So we appreciate that. At this point, we'll open it up to citizens' concerns. If there's anyone who wishes to come before council this evening. Hearing none, we will move on to reports, and we will start with council members. We'll start with Mr. McDonald.
Mr. Mayor, I have no report.
Ms. Becker?
I too have no report tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember O'Donnell?
I just want to say I enjoyed going to the league. I'm sure the other two council members will probably expand on that. They were able to go to more than I was, but I didn't win anything. That's okay. It was great. And the
Someone did.
yes. Is he going to tell us?
I don't know.
Kind of will now.
Anyway, I just wanted to say I appreciate the city sending us because I think it's always valuable to network. I was able to talk to some other council members there, and I believe Mrs. Martine and Mr. Lasher and I actually set in on some funding and how to get some of these grants for roads. So that was pretty profitable. So I just appreciate the city sending us, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Nguyen?
Yes, I also was in attendance for most of the time during the conference. I also had a few times when I had to bug out because things were going on at work that needed my attention. I did attend several of the breakout sessions, and I've not even had a chance to empty all the stuff I picked up from the booths and what have you, and really kind of go over it. So I think I'll probably have more of a report the next time when I've had time to look at some of that stuff. I did eat the free candy bar.
Councilmember Martine?
Yes, I'm thankful that the city let me go to the league. It was very interesting. I picked up on several things about farmers market, the solar grants, and planning for with our senior groups, getting them involved more and that type of stuff. And didn't win anything. Got home, and I have lots of emails to answer, and I guarantee I will answer them when I've had time to breathe a little bit. Other than that, I don't have anything else.
I have no formal report tonight, only to say I was unable to attend the full conference, but I was honored to be a panelist Monday morning. Was one of the panelists along with the city manager from the city of Goddard, as well as the economic development director from the city of Wichita. And we spoke about community engagement, and that was a really neat presentation, and it was a jammed-packed room. And I don't pretend for a second they were there for me, but because there were two, but had some really neat discussion and conversations with that, and it was an honor to do that. So with that, we'll move on to city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also got to attend the conference, and I was able to attend the session for attorneys as well, and working with, or getting to connect with other cities that are doing similar things to us, and using innovative ways to approach some challenges was a really great opportunity. And also, one of the recurring themes in the conference was the power of home rule and how important that is to local governments. That's the power that allows local governments to govern and come up with their own laws that fit their communities based on their needs.
What a concept.
I'm sorry. Never mind. So the concern with the league is concerned, and also the Kansas League of Cities is concerned, and so is also the National League of Cities, because both groups see an erosion of that power at the state level and at the federal level. So both groups are really concerned and have made it one of their main goals this year to lobby, get the word out, and work with state and federal governors and leaders to make sure that that home rule power is protected. So I'll be updating you with that, because I understand that's a concern for you and for Bel Aire citizens as well.
Thank you. City manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate all the council that were able to attend the league conference and the things that they sat in on. If you follow us on social media, that just translates that we did attend things. We We did attend the social. That was Sunday night, and so that was the picture. So everybody knows we were there. But we did attend different events and things like that. Social was a lot of fun. They always have those every year. But I as well have a list of things that I'm going to be looking into. The KDOT was a very good one. They had some information I had not seen before. We're going to be researching those to look into grants for streets. But speaking of grants, you remember we were talking about during the budget, the police chief was wanting some signs that had radars on them that would flash the speed and maybe slow down or some things like that, just kind of to remind people what the speed limits are. And so council graciously approved that in the agenda. But he also, about a month ago, while he was looking into that, he talked to KDOT to see if they had any funds, grant type of funds, and they did have some, so he applied, and we found out last week that we actually received a grant in the amount of $5,379 to purchase 2 of those.
Great.
And that's 100%, so there's no match that the city will have to pay, so we'll actually be getting them this year, and that money will stay in the budget next year. And if you like, I'm sure he can find something else to buy. But it was great that we got the grant for that, and it's a 100% grant. So like he said, that's something that we can move those around to different locations, and just to remind citizens that the speed limits is 45 or 30 or whatever it may be on different roads, and kind of proactively let citizens know rather than reactively with tickets and things. So that's all I had, Mayor.
Wonderful. Thank you. We're going to move into ordinances, resolutions, and final actions. Looks like a pretty long agenda, but what's interesting is I think a lot of these are resolutions dealing with a lot of the infrastructure improvements that we have made, that we've talked about quite a bit, especially in the last couple of workshops. But it does look like, and we'll call them up here in just a minute. I see Kevin is back there, but looks like we will be able to combine items B and C, as well as D through I, into single motions here. So, first, item A, like I said, the city's completed a number of public infrastructure improvements. These are now all ready to be special assessed. Our staff has been working with Gilmore and Bell, and that's to ensure these special assessments are accurate, and that's to make sure they're accurate based on the project. So like I said, there's a lot of actions that we're going to take place under this item. But Kevin Gowan is here with Gilmore and Bell. Want to share some details and answer questions?
Sure. So the first item is what we like to call phase 1 of the assessment proceeding. So all of the projects listed there in the agenda are complete, and there are temporary notes outstanding that temporarily finance the cost of those projects. And the statutory process involves determining the final costs, approving a statement of final cost, approving a proposed assessment roll, setting a hearing date, giving notice of the hearing to the property owners that are affected. And so that's what, again, is phase 1. You're approving the final costs of the projects listed there and establishing the hearing date, which is October 3rd of 2017, a couple of weeks. Authorizing, again, as I mentioned, the giving of notice by publication and mailing, and we work with staff to make sure that is done. So several things happening there, but it's really the kickoff of the assessment proceedings that will go through and lead to the permanent bond issue in a couple of months for these projects.
So the first item is consideration of approving these actions.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve each of said documents established October 3rd, 2017 at 7 p.m. to meet for the purpose of hearing any and all written or oral objections to the respective assessments set forth therein. Authorize the publication by the city clerk of Exhibit C in the official city newspaper not less than 10 days prior to such public meeting date. Mail Exhibit D to each and all owners of property affected by such assessments at their last known post office address on the same date as the publication of Exhibit C, and file each of said documents of record in the office of the city clerk and make the same available for public inspection.
Second.
We have a first, and we have a second. Are there any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Next item, B and C. These are resolutions that are amending the previous resolutions for Lacey Heights, the second edition there. So during the final calculations of the public infrastructure projects over there, a change in water and sewer affected the original authorizing petitions. So therefore, the amending resolutions under item B and C, this is required that we do this. And again, we'll let Kevin kind of talk about this.
Yeah, you're right. Project costs, for a couple of different reasons, were higher than what was estimated in the original petitions and original authorizing resolutions. So an amended petition was submitted, or two amended petitions were submitted, and each of these resolutions really just carries forward that information. Nothing has changed other than the estimated cost, and I think there were a couple of change orders or something that led to that. Still within sort of what would have been expected at the time in terms of estimated costs and escalating that over time. So this really is just kind of a cleanup now that we're going through the assessment proceedings and we have those amending petitions. We want to take care of this and get these into the bond transcript.
And Mr. Cowan, do you need these to be approved separately, or can we make one motion combining, you think?
I think you could have a motion, and this is my thought, the city attorney may have a different thought, but if the motion is to approve each of those resolutions, that works for me. And there may be different local practice or preference, but I think that's possible.
Yeah, and I would just add that if you, as you approve the resolutions, just name which resolution you're including in your motion, and that should cover it.
Is there a motion on one or both? Anybody?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve a resolution determining the advisability of the making of certain internal improvements in the city of Bel Aire, making certain findings with respect thereto, and authorizing and providing for the making of the improvements in accordance with such finding, sanitary sewer improvements, Lacey Heights, second edition, and amending, restating, and repealing Resolution R 15-10. And then also, I need to add that we are also going to do in the same place water distribution system improvements in Lacey Heights, second edition, and amending, restating, and repealing Resolution number R-15-11, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
First and second on items B and C. Questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, D through I, these are all the authorizing the resolutions. This is all dealing with Chapel Landing second, formally authorizing water, basically is what we're looking at here. Council did approve the final plat and accepted the petitions for this development at our September 5th meeting. So these resolutions allow for public financing of these improvements for whenever the developer is ready to move forward. And we have our city manager and Mr. Cowan here again if you have any questions. Since we have 4 items, should we just each do one?
Probably be simpler than to try to read
Yeah.
and insert, because there's
All
phase
right.
1, phase 2.
Yeah.
The paving and,
Which is, if council's agreeable, I guess I'll start with my Councilmember McDonald, if you want to start with that first one.
That's number D,
Yeah.
letter D, sorry.
Yeah.
Make a motion to accept the resolution determining the advisability of the making of certain internal improvements in the city of Bel Aire, Kansas, making certain findings with respect thereto, and authorizing and providing for the making of the improvements in accordance with such findings, water distribution system improvements, Chapel Landing, 3rd edition, Phase 1, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second?
First and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve a resolution determining the advisability of the making of certain internal improvements in the city of Bel Aire, Kansas, making certain findings with respect thereto, and authorizing and providing for the making of the improvements in accordance with such findings, water distribution system improvements, Chapel Landing, 3rd edition, Phase 2, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
First and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve a resolution determining the advisability of the making of certain internal improvements in the city of Bel Aire, making certain findings with respect thereto, and authorizing and providing for the making of the improvements in accordance with such finding, paving improvements, Chapel Landing, 3rd edition, Phase 1, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
First and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve a resolution determining can't say it.
Advisability.
Advisability of the making of certain internal improvements in the city of Bel Aire, making certain findings with respect thereto, and authorizing and providing for the making of the improvements in accordance with such finding, paving improvement, Chapel Landing, 3rd edition, Phase 2, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
First and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You still have each.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion to approve a resolution determining the advisability of the making of certain internal improvements in the city of Bel Aire, Kansas, making certain findings with respect thereto, and authorizing and providing for the making of the improvements in accordance with such findings. The sanitary sewer improvement for Chapel Landing, 3rd edition, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second?
First and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Move on to item I now.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve a resolution determining the advisability of the making of certain internal improvements in the city of Bel Aire, Kansas, making certain findings with respect thereto, and authorizing and providing for the making of the improvements in accordance with such findings, storm water drainage improvements, Chapel Landing, 3rd edition, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
First and seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next, item J, moving right along, we're looking at an ordinance now. This is to approve the reassessment agreement. This involves 2 lot owners that have had special assessments already spread in Elk Creek. One resident owns both of these lots, and you can see it there in your packet. Their neighbor wanted to purchase a portion of that empty lot, and they both agreed to split Lot 20 of Block 6 in Elk Creek. Lot owner 19 purchased 25% of Lot 20, while Lot 21 kept 75% of Lot 20. A lot of numbers there. Since the specials have already been spread, each lot owner in the city needs to approve the agreement. Again, we're approving the agreement that the homeowners basically have already come to. So, and again, well, if you have any questions, I'm going to point you to those 2 gentlemen.
Mr. Mayor, so basically, this lot will remain vacant, is what they're trying to do, right? Keep it between them? Is that what we're doing? Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve an ordinance approving of an agreement regarding the reassessment of certain spatial assessments levied by ordinance number 507 of the city of Bel Aire, Kansas, to pay the costs of certain internal improvements in the Elk Creek addition to the City of Bel Aire, Kansas, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
First and second, since it is an ordinance, does call for a roll call vote. Before I call for the vote, are there any questions or comments on this? Hearing none, we'll start the roll call vote. Dr. Becker?
Aye.
Guy McDonald?
Aye.
Betty Martine?
Aye.
Peggy O'Donnell?
Aye.
Diane Nguyen?
Aye.
Okay. Item K is something we've talked about. Seems like the last couple of workshops that we've had, and appreciate all of the input that we've had in that. Our city attorney was asked to review the bylaws of the Tree Board Utility Advisory Committee as well as the Community Development Committee. I know our city attorney met with each group to gather their suggestions and she shared those with the council at our September 12th workshop. So I believe the bylaws are now ready for council approval.
Yes.
Anything else to add to that?
The only thing I would add, Mr. Mayor, is that this would be, I would recommend that if we want to do it procedurally the way that we've kind of written out that we would do it, that the council consider the amendments and then table the motion until the committee approves the bylaws, and then bring the bylaws back to council for council to have final approval. I think the order of priority should be council touches the document last. So if that's okay, I would ask that council consider the changes so that way when the bylaws go to the committees, they kind of have your unofficial support, but you'll have the final sign off on it.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question. Relative to the tree board on this, the tree board was the most powerful committee that in the city at one point, and this now will make the tree board an ordinary committee with the normal powers that a committee has to do their work. Is that correct?
Not exactly.
Okay.
The tree board is the only committee that is an advisory. Well, it does retain the most power because it can kind of act as a board rather than an advisory committee. So the other committees have to come to council and advise council on what they see and issues and give feedback, whereas the tree board is designed to act as a board that can kind of act more independently. However, if I can add that the bylaws kind of codify the way the tree board operates. So the bylaws don't take any power away. The resolution is still the same, but the bylaws cause the tree board to act and operate in a predictable manner.
In a different manner. I was told at some time in the past that the tree board actually could go out and write a ticket for an individual who was in violation of city code. Is that still true?
That's not the way they do it anymore.
Good.
But
the tree board doesn't want to do that.
Right, yes, yeah. The change, I think, you're right. The tree board had a lot of power and supported the city in a lot of ways before we got professional staff to handle some of that. So now they do still support staff and they have a lot of knowledge and they advise staff and they're involved, but it didn't sound like they wanted that responsibility, and the bylaws don't change the way that don't
Okay.
impact.
All right. Thank you for your information. And Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Does anyone else want to speak or have a question? I'll make a motion to approve the Utility Advisory Committee, Community Development Advisory Committee, and Tree Board bylaws and authorize the mayor to sign.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. McDonald, I think we were going to table.
Oh, we're going to table? I was unaware of that.
She said if we could table and let them all approve it, and then we'll...
I thought that was done. I misunderstood you, Jackie.
Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't.
Okay. Change my vote for approval to table the Utility Advisory Committee, Community Development Advisory Committee, and Tree Board bylaws, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Thank you.
And again, so this is, we've had lengthy discussion about the last couple of workshops. We're going to send it back to the three committees, let them make sure they're okay with it before we give our final stamp. I like that idea. Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes. All right, I'm assuming, Jackie, you'll then carry the communication to make sure the chairperson of each committee.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. All righty, item L, this is something else that we discussed at length at our last workshop. The Utility Advisory Committee met with a concerned citizen specifically over the disconnect and reconnect fees for water and sewer. At present, we charge $150 to disconnect and reconnect those services. In addition, the city charges a 10% late fee, and the Utility Advisory Committee suggested that we lower the disconnect, reconnect fee to $50 and the late fee to 5%. Like I said, we discussed this at our last workshop, and what I took away was that the majority of the council felt the Utility Advisory Committee's recommendations were appropriate, so that's why the resolution is on the agenda to adopt the revised fee schedule with those two changes.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I have some comments about that. The cities often have difficulty raising funds for the various projects that are of issue to the citizens. And for a council to reduce the amount of monies received and that have been received for many, many years, I think is the wrong course of action for this council to take. To give money back and reduce the amount of income that the city has is something that I cannot approve. And so I think that money could be well used elsewhere. We do have needs for streets and things like that. Now, it's not a great deal of money, but I still am not against, I'm against the idea of cutting back on fees in general. I've finished my comments, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I also have a comment.
Go ahead.
Number one, we'll lose from $50,000 to $65,000 per year. Number two, that money can be spent on water and sewer breaks. Number three, it can also be used for CCUA, and it can be part of the money charged us for the repairs and to the plant. I know it's not enough, but it'll help. Number four, if water and sewer rates have to be raised due to this, as long as I'm on the council, I won't vote for a water and sewer increase, because that money can also be paid to the to Wichita when they send us the rate raises. We haven't raised water and sewer for quite some time because of Wichita raising their rates. If we have to raise taxes in the future because of this, I won't vote for that either. How are we going to pay for the increases every time Wichita raises our rates? Number seven, besides, our staff are working on a shoestring budget, and they keep things running great. They should be highly commended for the price of the budget. When I read those articles where the community development, the advisory board, whatever they are.
Utility Advisory
Utility Advisory Board, I'm not sure that they all understood what this money's used for. We're not just putting it in the pocket of the city and it sits there. The water clerk is going to be increased quite a bit if we lower that fee to $50. Also, in the letter that she sends out, it can also, they have 10 working days to call her. They don't have to come in person to be embarrassed. When I was working in the water department, I had a man that worked at Boeing before Mr. Lasher's time, and he got laid off. He had 4 children. His wife stayed home with them because they were small and they couldn't afford a babysitter. I took him up to the city administrator at that time. We talked it over. He was working at McDonald's full-time. Then he would go to Wendy's and work full-time. The gentleman is now back with Spirit, and I believe it's in Washington. I'm not sure where it is. But every once in a while, I get a Christmas card from them thanking me for helping them make the payments that they could. He went to all utilities and did the same thing, and they all worked with him. So therefore, I will not be able to vote for this decrease in fees. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
after our last workshop, I actually had a couple of citizens that called me and said they appreciated us to take into consideration when there is a hardship. I understand Councilmember Martine talking about if Wichita raises their water rates. Unfortunately, if they do, and they probably will, obviously, we would have to pass that on to our consumers of water. None of us want to have a water increase. I don't want any kind of tax increase. I don't want any kind of water and sewer increase. But the bottom line is, if they do, I would rather the people who consume it, that we pay our small increase rather than to make a hardship even worse on people. I think the research that the Utility Advisory Committee did was really helpful in this decision. I appreciate their input, and I think it's more in line with what other cities are doing. So I'm going to support this new resolution. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'd like to say that I too understand what council members Martine and McDonald are saying here. However, the committee did do their research, and Bel Aire is way out of line with what other cities are paying for these shutoffs. And I have seen the burden put on the backs of those who are least able to pay. And people that are already struggling with their utility bills should not be paying an exorbitant fee here in Bel Aire, more so than other cities charge. And we should not depend on income from those who are least able to pay. And often when people have a big shut-off fee and then they have a big fee to start their utilities again, it just starts a downward spiral because they didn't have enough money in the first place for whatever reason. And it's not, in my opinion, an ethical thing to do to our citizens. And so I think we're still going to be making some money off of those things, and it's not out of line with what other cities are doing. And so I would support lowering these fees. And personally, I'm glad when citizens come to us and express their feelings about this type of thing and express how they feel, whether it's fair or not. And I think everybody up here wants to be fair to everyone. And so I appreciate the citizen that came forward with this, making a note of this and making us aware of this, and I appreciate the research the committee did to find out what other cities charge. And so it's not a huge amount of money. It's not going to make a huge amount of difference to the city, but it is a huge amount of money to these individuals that are paying it and can really be a problem for their families. So I would be on the side of approving this resolution.
Any other comments? So far, we've not had a motion, so my council.
Are you ready for a motion?
I'm ready anytime. We can further discussion before or after.
Well,
Mr. Mayor,
Okay, Councilmember Nguyen.
I would like to make a motion to approve a resolution concerning the service license and permit fees within the corporate limits of the city of Bel Aire, Kansas. I guess it doesn't go further.
And just authorize.
And authorize the mayor to sign. Turn it over to make
Second.
sure.
Second.
First and second. Any other questions or comments before we vote on this? So right now, the motion before council is to approve the recommendations from the UAC. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
I have a vote of 3-2. City clerk, she got 2. Motion does pass. Okay. Discussion and future issues. I don't have anything on my magical list here. I have no need for an executive session. Does anybody else?
I just have a question.
Yes.
Well, we're talking about discussion and future issues. Mr. Lasher, is the Bel Aire Days October 21st?
I don't remember the exact date, but.
The Fall
yes,
Festival, I think it's
The Fall
October 21,
Festival?
yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
That seems right.
okay.
I know that.
I had a call on my way, and I was trying to go off the top of my head, and I thought we probably should, I mean, I'm sure
Yeah.
it'll be out
It
all
went
over
out,
the social
It went out
media.
in the water bills.
Didn't get mine in my email yet.
So-
Okay,
So
I just wanted to
everybody
make sure,
should
and it's
check their
just
water
a,
bills.
it's just a daytime one, right, like before?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay, thank you.
Let me get a reminder.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
If there's no further discussion or questions, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
First and second to adjourn at 7:40. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. All right, and stay.